Welcome back to Old Coin Adventures. Let me ask you something. If someone handed you a penny today, would you really believe it could be worth more than you expect? Most people wouldn't. They would look at Lincoln, see 1 cent, and move on. And that's exactly why coins like this can be so interesting. Because the people who find collectible coins aren't always the people searching for treasure. Sometimes, they're simply the people who know which coins deserve another chance. And there's something about the year 1968 that makes this Lincoln cent worth putting under the microscope. This isn't about finding an old penny and automatically calling it rare. It's about understanding what you're holding and knowing why certain examples can attract serious attention from collectors. Imagine finding this coin years ago, dropping it into a jar, forgetting about it, and then discovering later that you may have been holding something worth investigating all along. That's the kind of possibility that makes old coin hunting so addictive. And today, I'm going to take you through this 1968 Lincoln cent from a completely different angle. We're going to uncover what makes this particular year interesting, what separates an ordinary example from a collectible one, what condition can do to its value, and what confirmed examples have actually brought when they reach the marketplace. I'll also show you where you could take a potentially valuable example, how you can avoid selling too quickly, and what you should know before believing any huge price you see online. So if you have a 1968 penny somewhere, don't think of it as one more coin. Think of it as a question. Why did this particular penny survive? And what might make someone else want it? Because sometimes, the most valuable thing about an old coin isn't what you see first. It's the reason someone else is willing to pay attention to it. So, if you have a 1968 Lincoln cent, don't look at it as just another penny. Before we talk about money, we need to understand what makes this coin interesting in the first place. Because there is a big difference between an old coin and a collectible coin. And that difference can sometimes be surprisingly small. The 1968 Lincoln cent was made during an important period in American coin history. The United States was producing enormous numbers of Lincoln cents, and millions of these coins entered everyday circulation. They were used in stores, carried in pockets, dropped into cash registers, and eventually forgotten inside drawers and coin jars. That's why finding a 1968 cent today isn't unusual, but finding the right example can be a completely different story. So, the first thing you need to understand is that the date alone doesn't make this coin rare. If you have a worn 1968 penny, there's a good chance it's simply a normal circulated coin. And that's perfectly fine. The interesting part begins when you start examining the details. Look closely at the date. 1968. Now move your eyes just below it. Do you see a mint mark? That tiny letter can tell you where the coin was produced. And this is something collectors always pay attention to, because coins made at different mint facilities can have different levels of rarity, different varieties, and different collector demand. But don't stop there. Turn the coin over. Look carefully at the reverse. Check the lettering. Check the wheat ears. Look around the rim. Then turn it back over and study Lincoln's portrait. Look at the hair. Look at the cheek. Look at the jawline. Look at the lettering around the coin. Now ask yourself, does this coin look heavily worn? Or does it still have unusually sharp details? That question matters, because condition can dramatically change collector interest. Think about two coins sitting next to each other. Both are 1968 Lincoln cents. Both are genuine. Both have the same basic design. But one has spent decades circulating. It's scratched, and covered with signs of everyday use. The other has been protected. Its details are stronger. Its surfaces are cleaner. And it has very little wear. To most people, they are both worth 1 cent. But collectors don't always see them that way. They look at condition. They look at rarity. They look at eye appeal. And they look for something unusual. And that's where things get really interesting. Because sometimes, a coin becomes collectible because of an error or variety. A mistake during the minting process can create something that was never supposed to be there. Maybe a design element is struck differently. Maybe there is unusual doubling. Maybe a feature doesn't match what should normally appear on the coin. But here's the important part. Not every unusual mark is a mint error. A scratch isn't automatically an error. A dent isn't automatically an error. Damage from a machine isn't automatically a valuable variety. And discoloration doesn't automatically mean rarity. This is why you should never make a final decision just by looking at one photograph online. You need to compare. You need to study. And you need to verify. Because the internet can make almost any old coin look like a fortune. You might see one listing asking hundreds, or even thousands, of dollars. But an asking price is not proof of value. What matters much more is what a comparable coin actually sold for. And that's something we're going to come back to later. But before we get there, there's another important question. What happens if your 1968 penny really does look different? Should you clean it? Should you polish it? Should you try to make it shine? Absolutely not. If you think you've found something interesting, leave the coin exactly as you found it. Handle it carefully. Hold it by the edges. Keep it away from chemicals. And don't rub the surface, because trying to improve an old coin can actually make it less desirable. Instead, take clear photographs. Get both sides. Get a close-up of the date. Get a close-up of the mint mark. And if you notice something unusual, photograph that area from different angles. The goal isn't to make the coin look better. The goal is to preserve the evidence. And now, we've reached the point where the real investigation begins. Because knowing what to look for is only half the story. The bigger question is, what happens when collectors actually want a coin like this? And more importantly, what has a genuine example actually brought in the real marketplace? We're saving that answer for the end, because the final number might be very different from what you expect. Now, let's take this investigation one step further. Imagine you've checked your 1968 Lincoln Cent, and something about it doesn't look ordinary. Maybe the condition is surprisingly strong. Maybe you notice an unusual feature. Maybe the strike looks different. Or maybe you simply have a feeling that this coin deserves a closer look. What should you do? The first step is verification. Before thinking about selling, you need to know exactly what you have. And this is where a reputable coin dealer can help. A knowledgeable dealer can examine the coin, compare its characteristics, and tell you whether it deserves further research. But if the coin appears to be particularly valuable, you may want to go one step further. Professional grading and authentication can provide independent confirmation of what the coin actually is and how well it has been preserved. Companies such as PCGS and NGC are well known among serious collectors, and their certified coins can be easier for buyers to evaluate. But again, don't spend money grading every old penny you find. Most circulated coins won't need it. The key is knowing when the coin has enough unusual characteristics, condition, or potential value to justify professional examination. Now let's talk about something else, where you should not get your information. Random social media posts. Someone may post a picture of a penny, write $10,000 across the screen, and make it look like anyone can find a fortune. But that doesn't prove anything. The same is true for online listings. If someone lists a coin for $20,000, that doesn't mean the coin is worth $20,000. The real question is, did somebody actually pay that amount? That's why confirmed auction results are so important. Collectors look at real transactions, not just dramatic price tags. And now, we've finally reached the part you've been waiting for, the money. But before we reveal the number, remember what we've learned. A normal 1968 Lincoln Cent is not automatically worth a huge amount. Condition matters. Mint information matters. Errors and varieties matter. Authentication matters. And most importantly, the exact coin matters. So when you see a headline claiming that a 1968 penny is worth thousands, don't assume every example has that value. The highest prices belong to specific coins, under specific circumstances. And now, let's talk about the actual marketplace. A documented auction result gives us something much more useful than a random online claim, because it shows what a buyer was actually willing to pay. For the 1968 Lincoln Cent, the most important thing is to compare the exact variety and grade rather than simply searching for the year. High-grade certified examples can bring dramatically more attention than ordinary circulated coins. And some specialized varieties or errors can command prices far beyond the value of a normal example. So, if you're checking your own coin, don't ask only, how much is a 1968 penny worth? Ask a better question. Which 1968 penny do I have? That question can completely change the investigation. And if you found an example that appears genuinely unusual, this is where you can get it checked. You can start with a reputable local coin dealer. For a potentially significant coin, you can also consider professional authentication and grading through established services such as PCGS or NGC.